Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Brett Allen Show. We're talking with actor and comedian Jon Gabrus. 101 Places to Party Before You Die just dropped on HBO Max. This travel, I don't know, is it a travel show? It's comedy, you and your buddy Adam. I mean, this, I think, is like some of the best television out there. Thanks so much for your time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, if you're going to lead off with saying the show is some of the best TV out there, I'll sit here. You can have all my fucking time you want, Brett. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a travel show where our goal was to make it funny. We just wanted to make a funny travel show. We didn't care so much about conveying the information about the mouth feel of certain sliders or anything like that. We were just like, we just wanted to be funny, and we like travel shows and we like travel docs. So getting to do that genre was fun for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, really, Adam is just funny anyway, and so are you. But then the two of you together, I think this is like everybody's like dream travel show, but you really get to experience the places that you go to, and you have fun too. So, I know you. The question always gets asked, what was the concept behind it or how did you come up with it? But I think, for a show like this, it is kind of interesting because you did go to so many different places. Was this filmed during pandemic COVID-ish times, or
Yeah,
kind of a mix of things? Because it kind of gives that feel just a little bit.
We shot the pilot in the heat of it in like 2021. In 2021. And so that was, so the Denver episode is kind of more in it, and we're like at less crowded bars and restaurants and always sitting at tables by ourselves. But for us, shooting the pilot was the first thing I did, really. To go to Denver to shoot that first episode was the first time I was on a plane in a couple of years, the first time I was Uber in a couple of years, the first time I was inside a restaurant in a couple of years, and I ripped all that Band-Aid off with one day while cameras were rolling on us. Later on, when we would go on to do, we shot the rest of the season starting in early 2022, in February 2022, and that was it was really cool because the world had kind of country had kind of opened again. People were a little scared, but it was great to get to go to different restaurants and bars and bring business and spend money, and servers who had just had a brutal couple of years, if they even were able to work. It was not fun. So getting a drop in and over tip and buy a bunch of rounds of drinks for people in different bars was a real highlight of the gig for sure.
Yeah, I think one of you mentioned something in one of the episodes about your wife is just thankful that you have jobs and you're able to work and get out of the house after 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where normally if like you're in a partnership or you have shared responsibilities at home, if you're like, hey, I'm going to go on 8 weekend trips with my buddy in the next couple of months, that might get frowned upon. But if you're like, and I'll be getting paid for it, so I can help us pay the rent, then it's kind of like, all right, hun, see you later. Catch you later. I'll walk the dog. See you in 8 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, it's a lot of fun. And the Denver episode, obviously, since we live here, was definitely one of my favorites to see you go to a couple places that I've been to. And
do you have us to do you have a spot? Usually when we go to a city that people live in, the thing they want to tell us the most is the spot we missed. So do we have a spot do you have a spot you love in Denver that you want to shout out?
I
right
do,
now
but I will tell you the Waffle Lab in Fort Collins is one of the best places because
the name alone has got me intrigued, by the way.
Yeah, I'll send a link to your publicist for you to check out, or I'll DM you. It's the Waffle Lab, and the cool thing is like if you have food allergies like my son does, they do gluten-free options and wheat-free, but it's still good. But the way that they do the waffles is it's a dough that they put into the waffle iron, but it's not a typical waffle mix. So it's got a different flavor and a different texture to it. And they do, of course, the chicken and waffles is, always so good. It's the sweet and savory. It's just really good. And the place is always busy. It's one of the first places that now I'm hungry that we went to when we moved here. But it's in Fort Collins, and it's really good. It's been on Triple D with Guy Fieri has covered it. And then another spot just for fun for kids is Totally 80s Pizza in Fort Collins as well, which is an 80s themed pizza place. The food is pretty good, but it's the nostalgia there is what you go for. I mean, it's like if you grew up in the 80s, like I did, it's a lot of fun. I
Yeah, in
mean,
Denver, we go to 5280s, which is like a crazy 80s nostalgia toy store. And that was
same concept.
yeah, as like a 40-year-old, that was very fun to be in there and see all the toys from my youth just available to that's like the crazy thing about getting older and having money. It's like I remember the second I got like a little bit of money, I bought the Infinity Crisis Marvel run, and this was before the movies were announced. I was just so happy to be like, these were the biggest comics when I was a kid, and now I can go on eBay and they're 90 something dollars altogether. I can actually afford that. It was like a
Yeah.
dream come true.
Yeah, it's funny with pop culture, looking at some of these things that are out and that exist. We were just at Denver Comic Con. I did press for that. And some of the things that were there is just mind blowing because it's like I had these when I was a kid and now they're just, who knows where they are. But what I learned, a pro tip, you may or may not know this, if you go to these events, I found out from an actual vendor, if you wait until the last day, at the end of the day, these guys don't want to carry all this stuff back with them. So they're willing to cut deals on some of these collectibles. So that's the best thing. I want to switch gears a little bit. Of course, the show is great. It's on HBO Max. And I
Hell
really
yeah.
encourage fans to watch if you're listening and watching this conversation. I want to talk about just your career in a nutshell because you've had a lot of success. You've done a lot of different shows, sitcoms. I mean, just you've been all over the map as far as some of the comedy that you do. But really quick, where did that journey start for you? Like, where did the interest come into your life and begin for you when you knew, A, this is something I could do, and B, not just that, but it's something that I probably could get paid for before you obviously knew you could, speaking of money.
Yeah. Well, the medium itself, working in entertainment, whatever, I guess I had misdirected motivation when I was a kid, and I loved movies and TV so much, and I would watch it so like it was my babysitter. I was the oldest latchkey kid. Just come home, put on TV, come home, put on movies. Free HBO weekend. I'm not going outside. I'm watching whatever movies are on HBO all weekend. And that triggered me to be like, I love all these movies I watch. So that means I should be a Navy SEAL or like an elite soldier, like in all these movies. So like I like misunderstood what I was liking about it so much. And then later on in life, I wanted to be an FBI agent in my high school years. And it wasn't until I was like a senior in high school and did like a talent show and then going to college. I was a bio major because I thought I was going to work in forensics. And like like days into days into college, I was like, wait a minute, there's like a comedy group here. And then I like put it all together. It's like I want to play a Navy SEAL, I want to play an FBI agent. So then I like was just at like an activity fair, and someone was like, oh, you should join put an H next to your name. We were like signing up for at the theater thing. I'm like, oh, I didn't do theater in high school or anything, but I was like, that'd be fun, I love messing around. And then they're like, oh, you seem funny, you should put an H next to your name for like the humor group or whatever. I was like, sure. Whatever the fuck that is. Then I joined an improv and sketch group in college, and that was the year 2000. And changed my perspective. I was like, this is more fun than college. This is more fun. So then I just wanted to do comedy. And, I thought making money working into like, so I was also like a PA and an intern
Okay, so
for
you
like
kind of had a
VH1 and shit. So
okay.
I was like, oh, I'm going to move to New York City and work in TV while I try to make it. I had no idea, like, really what my family didn't have like the money for me to be like, I'm going to just kind of like get an apartment and become an actor. So I had to like figure out what that meant. And I got like PA jobs and shit like that. I was hustling back then.
Yeah, that's where it starts. I mean, Tom Segura was saying that he used to do production and editing work for like all these reality shows. a lot of these comedians or comic actors. So where did your first break really come? Like when did it hit for you?
I guess you know, I don't know if I ever really had a break as much as I've had like whatever the opposite of a death of a thousand cuts is. Like, I've had like 1,000 small steps, and they've all kind of
Sure.
added up to a journey. Like, but I guess the first popular thing I did was a show called Guy Code on MTV2
Yeah.
in like the mid aughts that people or yeah, mid aughts, early 2010s, that people were into. Wasn't exactly my sense of humor, but I had a blast doing it. Loved working with the people I was working with. But that was probably I early on in my career, I like did 2 seasons of a game show called The Substitute, where I pretended to be a substitute teacher and then revealed that it was
Yes.
like a cash cab like kind of situation in their classroom. And that was really fun. And that kind of, even though that wasn't at all what I wanted to do, but it just opened my eyes to like all the kind of stuff you can do in the industry. So I was like overwhelmed with that in a good way. I'm like, yay, we can do anything.
That's funny. So do you enjoy doing like the roast or like the wild and out stuff? Is that fun for you, or do you enjoy more of like the television, the stuff that's a little bit more structured, and that
Yeah,
sort of thing?
that's a good question. I'm not really sure. I like the phrase that's coming to my mind right now is beggars can't be choosers.
That's a good
And
answer. I
yeah,
love that.
and for me, I'm just happy to be getting paid a day rate anywhere. But like, to use specifics that you use, like Wild and Out is particularly fun because I have like friends. I've been doing the show on and off for like several years, so I have some friends that when I get to go back, I'm like, oh shit, so and so is here. It's nice to see Conceited or Chico or whoever. Um, and then like TV, like getting to go on big budget TV always feels cool because then you feel like you're participating in like a giant machine. Like when I was a recurring extra on 30, I played one of the non-speaking writers on 30 Rock. And
Yeah.
also like I'd done a scene in Bones and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and like these big productions. When you do like one day, like you feel the weight of like what's involved in like a Bones production. I got to be like near a boat in a lake in LA. Like there's like so much going on because it's a fucking, they've got the juice behind it.
I love it. Well, we had Maddie Smith on from Wild Now last year, and she said similar things, like Wild Now's fun because of the improv aspect, but even a lot of that, is planned to a degree, obviously, because um, when you're filming a show, but it's just fun, I think, to be able to do something you love, not to sound trite, you won't work a day in the rest of your life.
Right, right.
And this show, 101 Places to Party Before You Die, is definitely, I really do mean that. It's a really good show. I've watched it a couple times because the episodes are short and fun. And I mean, it's just cool to see. I love travel shows too, but this is, I think, like a fun travel show that you can watch. And if you live in one of those places, it might expose somebody to something that they didn't know existed in their hometown. Very cool stuff. What's your website and how can people connect with you to see what you're up to, John?
I my website's gabrus.com. I don't know how much updates I'm doing there, but if you follow me at Gabrus on Twitter and Instagram, I'm always posting what I'm up to. Like I said before, like journey of 1,000 steps. I'm a podcaster. I have a couple of podcasts. I
Yes.
pop up on other people's podcasts. I recur, like do random TV shit. So I'm out there, I'm around, but if you're listening to this and you're curious, check out 101 Places to Party Before You Die. Now on HBO Max, we got 8 episodes. One of the things we are hearing from a lot of viewers is they love that we went to like Richmond and Denver and Atlanta and like cities that people could like afford to go to, and cities that people live near. So like I highly recommend, if you're like, oh shit, we can steal a weekend away in Denver, let's check it out. And then maybe add the Waffle Lab in Fort Collins to your list, because that sounds good as hell.